Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has concluded his France visit. In fact, in a break from tradition, President Emmanuel Macron saw him off at the airport. The Prime Minister is now en route to Washington D.C. In the last 3 days, the two leaders discussed defense, nuclear energy, artificial intelligence and terrorism. India has offered Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher to France, taking forward the defense partnership between the two countries. They also held conversations on the construction of Sorpeen submarines in India. A crucial declaration of intent was signed to enhance collaboration on next-generation nuclear reactor technologies as well. While reiterating its support for India's membership of the UNSC, the two nations called for urgent need for reform of the global body. The crucial trade route, India-Middle East-European Union Economic Corridor, was also discussed, and the leaders were apprised of the logistical details of the project. India and France launched an India-France roadmap on artificial intelligence as well, as the two countries chaired the third AI Action Summit. A day earlier, the Prime Minister had urged French CEOs to invest in India as well, saying it is the right time to do business with India. Let's try and understand what were the outcomes of this very crucial visit of the Indian Prime Minister to France and the relationship that the two countries have shared over the past several decades. On Global Mirror, I'm joined by Ms. Veena Sikri. She's a former ambassador. I'm joined by Alexis Polin, founder of Le Monde Moderne. And Professor Madhav Nalapat, he is a geopolitical expert, Vice Chair, Manipal Advanced Research Group. Good evening and namaskar to both of you. I believe we'll be joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri in a short while from now. Alexis, let me begin with you first. Bonjour to you first. First of all, help me understand how France is viewing this entire visit of the Indian Prime Minister. It's been a crucial visit for India and France, but what were the key outcomes for you?
Yes, it's been a very important visit and a milestone in the relationship between France and India, and also with all the AI summit on artificial intelligence. There was a lot of announcement, and as you've seen, President Macron and Prime Minister Modi went to Marseille in the south of France, visiting also the Cadarache new energy reactor. I think for both countries, it's important to show that they are binding and moving forward in trying not to be inside what's now is the new empire business, meaning the US against China, and also the BRICS. So I think there is another way maybe, and it's very good that two old countries like France and India are working together in so many sectors.
Yeah. Professor Nalapat, you want to come in on this? The fact that India and France and perhaps the entire world, different countries across the world are now, looking at the United States of America, Donald Trump coming in, that is going to have an influence on the kind of dynamics that India and European Union share as well, isn't it?
Well, that's certainly going to affect the dynamic. And one important reason is the fact that unlike President Biden, President Trump knows that this is the era of the Indo-Pacific. It's no longer the era of the Atlantic. It's the era of the Indo-Pacific. The US is an Atlantic power as well as an Indo-Pacific power. And President Trump's, if you look at the choices that President Trump has made for his cabinet, now, then you will see, I mean, a lot of talk has been going on. Trump is the deal maker. Xi Jinping can cut a deal with him. Well, if you've got people at the as national security advisor, as a CIA chief, as the now the incoming director of national intelligence, various other sensitive picks, all of them have been on record multiple times as welcoming a friendly relationship with India and prioritizing it. And by the way, prioritizing is the exact word used by the Trump White House before the Prime Minister arrives in Washington. So I'd like to say, quite frankly, that as far as India is concerned, I mean, the French visit was wonderful. France, remember, was the only Western country to basically not support, but not really attack India after the Pokhran nuclear test. whether other countries, UK, Canada, US, you name it, the attack was vicious and merciless, as though we are some kind of a lower class of people who don't deserve to have the nuclear facilities. Now, quite frankly, I think Prime Minister Modi is going to have to do several deals with President Trump, but he's from the state of Gujarat. The people of Gujarat are not unused,
Yeah.
shall we say, to getting deals done. And I'm very certain that it's going to be a very productive visit in the US. Certainly, the French visit was marked by a very deep cordiality on the part of President Macron. But India will have to make some choices on its defense tie-ups. And it'll need to be, if the US gives certain attractive choices, of course, India will choose the US. But don't forget, there's somebody waiting in the wings, and that is Russia. Russia has already offered the Sukhoi 57, a fifth generation aircraft. I mean, can France offer a fifth generation aircraft? Can the US do so? The US is offering 4.5 generation. We want fifth gen aircraft. The Russians have already offered us that. And of course, one good news is that the pressure on India because of the purchase of Russian oil is going to abate. Unlike Biden, as I told you, Trump is fixed on the Indo-Pacific. He knows the importance of India, and much more than, frankly, Biden seemed to in policy matters. So I'm quite hopeful it will be a very good visit between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and watch, Professor Nalapat, how this really moves forward along with President Trump. But, getting back to France and the India-France relationship, Alexis, you mentioned China, and that is, one of the influences that the Indo-Pacific region sees. All right, we have Ambassador Veena Sikri also with us. Welcome, Ambassador Sikri. Alexis, as I was saying, China, of course, has been a dominant factor in the Indo-Pacific region. In fact, India and France today in their joint statement have also called for an inclusive rules-based Indo-Pacific region. And that is perhaps one of the key focuses that has remained over the past several years, considering the fact that China has been notorious in its expansionist policy. For France, then, how does it dehyphenate India from China? How does it see its relationship with India vis-a-vis countering the China dominance?
Yes, I think it's part of, again, a deal and a strategy of both nations to maintain China influence in the Indo-Pacific. You remember France as a drawback when they tried to sell some submarine to Australia, and it was not a success because the contract was broken. So the fact that now with India, they can have a new deal of submarines and work towards the region. France is trying also to reshuffle its international diplomacy, given the drawbacks the country had in Africa lately. And I think the Indo-Pacific will be, in the coming months and year, a key region, given that Trump is back in the White House and has really a view on what the relationship should be between the US and China concerning this region as well. So it's very important to be there. It's also very important, as you mentioned in the introduction, to work with India to have a special intelligence on terrorism and to make sure that security works for both countries and the region.
Okay. Ambassador Veena Sikri, this is a relationship between India and France that is going on for decades, 1998, and, later in the later years, we had the comprehensive strategic partnership with France. So we've had a solid, healthy, constructive relationship with France. How do you see this visit of the Indian Prime Minister? For you, what were the key outcomes? There was defense, there was nuclear energy, there was AI, there were lots of things that were talked about.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important aspects of the relationship between India and France is that both of us are committed to a foreign policy based on strategic autonomy. I think this is very important. It's very important for India and it's very important for France. So I think India and France, you're quite right that we had the very first strategic partnership with France and it's gone into comprehensive strategic partnership. But the relationship has developed in a very unique way that we are focused on each other in terms of the mutual benefit and mutual interest. So we have worked out with each other very important areas of concurrence, which is like, for example, in defense, a 90,000 crore, Rafale maritime aircraft and the Scorpion submarine deal, and also the small modular reactors and the advanced modular reactors, civil nuclear energy cooperation, quite unique. Both of us are convinced that civil nuclear energy is the way of the future, and we've been able to work it out with France. With many other countries, civil nuclear cooperation has been nuclear energy cooperation has been much more difficult to work out. I think the understanding that India and France have worked out with each other on many important issues, like even on IMEC, you saw that on the the Middle East European corridor, a presentation being given. So India and France are able to understand each other on this, and even on the Indo-Pacific. Although France is not in Quad and India is in Quad, but India and France are going to cooperate on the Indo-Pacific. So I think all of these issues brings out that the focus in our bilateral relationship is on these areas that we can work together. Now we know on Russia, for example, that France has got a very different position on Russia from India, and now what they have been saying on the Ukraine war and what they've been saying on Russia in that context is very different. But each of us can live with these differences in our bilateral relationship because we have worked so much to focus on the mutual benefit and the mutual understanding and gone vastly ahead in those areas. So that gives a real meaning and meat to the relationship, that we have so much that we have been able to work together on. And this is also the question of China that you asked our fellow panelist. I mean, he didn't answer it correctly. What will France's view on China be in the coming decades? Because they have one view on Russia, but on China, their view is still not very clear, and they're still working in terms of economic cooperation. So these complexities are there with each country. But between India and France, because we have focused on the commonalities, we have had such a substantive success and such strong outcomes of this visit.
Professor Nalapat, Ambassador Sikri made an important point that we've agreed to disagree. Between India and France, we've agreed to disagree and we've learned to live with the differences and still continue a healthy relationship. A lot of that credit perhaps goes to both countries following their own strategic economy and the diplomatic tightrope that they have to walk in times of conflicts, isn't it?
Look, quite frankly, strategic autonomy means the ability to plan a foreign policy that is based on one's own strategic interests, the strategic interests of India. It does not mean that one day I'm with you, the next day I'm with somebody else, I balance you, I balance somebody else. Sometimes you need balancing if it's good for India strategically. Sometimes you don't need that balancing. And like in the Quad, for example, I think it's high time the Quad was made into a formal security alliance. Now, as far as Africa is concerned, India has got a very strong footprint in Africa. Let me be quite honest with you. Because of the previous history, the French are not very welcome in Africa. So any tie-ups with the French in Africa are not really going to be of great help to India, in my view. It could be a hindrance because remember, Prime Minister Modi is positioning himself correctly and India as the champion of the global South. And the global South contains several African countries. Africa is the continent of the future, like Asia is the continent of the present. And quite frankly, it's no longer the age of Europe, it's the age of Asia. And tomorrow, Africa is going to join Asia in that particular setup. So I want to say that, yes, we can finesse. There's no doubt we were grateful for the fact that Jacques Chirac supported India, not supported, but at least did not oppose India vociferously, the way some so-called friends, the US, Canada, Australia, and all such, UK did. But I'd like to say that let's be honest, conditions have changed since then, since Jacques Chirac, And India under Prime Minister Modi is very much a 2025 power. India under Prime Minister Modi looks to 2025 to make choices. And a very hard choice is going to come on the Prime. For example, submarines. In my personal view, judging from what I've heard from defense experts, you have to have nuclear-powered submarines. There's just no point in going in for conventional submarines. It's going to be a total waste of time because they're going to be sitting ducks for any advanced navy, and the Chinese have an advanced navy. So on Russia, the divergence is very clear, but fortunately, I think Trump is looking for a friendly relationship, a collaborative relation with Russia. And if I may say so, Shreya, it's high time because in the first Cold War, China sided with the United States against the Soviet Union. In the second Cold War taking place between China and the democracies, Russia has to at least remain neutral, if not on the side of the democracies, during what is well known to be World War II. So let's be honest, the differences are real. And when you come to America, the congruences are real. And I think, if you look at, again, Trump's choices for his cabinet, every one of them are fully understanding the threat from China and the opportunity of working together with India. Shreya.
Sure, there is a collective awareness perhaps of what China might do or the kind of Chinese threat that the world faces. But Alexis, I want to take your focus to the ITER, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, and that has been perhaps a very important aspect of this visit of the Indian Prime Minister, where both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Emmanuel Macron were there at the ITER. It is one of the world's most advanced fusion nuclear energy projects that the two countries are part of. But how do you see that moving forward between India and France, considering the kind of geopolitical conflicts that we have seen in the past several years?
Well, I think it's, as you said, very important. It was the key moment, as well as the artificial intelligence conference. Clearly, the visit was under the future or the brains or what would be the energy of tomorrow, the artificial intelligence of tomorrow. And energy will be key in the world of tomorrow. France has a nuclear power plant, as you know, and the partnership with India on this could be also great. But the ITER is kind of a groundbreaking research facility where France has been working on for many years on the next generation of nuclear or a source of energy. And as you said, China is working on this as well. But the ITER has some advance because it has been in Cadarache for years now, and we have this knowledge in France that could move forward. But I think, as many projects, it needs collaboration, it needs investments, and it needs engineers. And if you look at how the world is shaping, India is producing many great engineers every year. Lots of them going to America or staying in India, but they could also come to France. And Cadarache is very important for the future of the energy market if the research move towards implementation phase.
Yes. Ambassador Veena Sikri, one of the other ways through which countries are coming together to counter the Chinese threat, apart from, the kind of steps that have already been taken, is IMEC, the logistics of which were given out to both leaders today. They, in fact, visited that facility as well, where the India, Middle East, European Union Economic Corridor was, explained to them, the logistics and how the operations are being carried out. But obviously, that still remains a crucial point as far as India and France are trying to sort of counter the Chinese belligerence and yet, stay away from the sort of 100% American dependency as well, even though US leads IMEC.
Well, I think that France is very realistic about this. I think France has its own economic relationship with China, and I think one has to recognize that. But I think that but despite that, France recognizes the value of IMEC, and they would value their participation in IMEC, even though the US is there. France-US's relations are tricky in its own way. So what I'm trying to say is that we are focusing on the ways in which France and India can be involved in the same projects to mutual benefit, despite the relationship of either India or France with USA, with China, with Russia. And I think IMEC is one such project that can be so, even though the US is very big in it. And I think the fact that President Macron and Prime Minister Modi sat together and listened to this presentation, and of course our Prime Minister spoke in this presentation also a lot and gave his own view on it, I think it shows that President Macron appreciates this and wants to participate in it. It is going to be the next latest thing. BRI, we know, is on its way out, because we know that BRI has a lot of problems of debt dependency increasing, and many countries are withdrawing. Even Italy has withdrawn from BRI. So for Europe today, IMEC is a much more real possibility. And I think that as Prime Minister Modi moves on to the visit to USA, I think this is going to become even clearer, because in USA, the discussions are going to be on an entirely different set of issues, whether it is trade or tariffs or immigration or Quad, or bilateral or South Asia. So I think, it shows that by combining these in time, the visits to France first and then USA, but the difference comes up so clearly that we are so, well able to manage the strategic autonomy of France and India to the benefit of both countries, and we are able to build the greater, stronger partnership with USA based on mutual benefit there. So I think this is a very good example of successful Indian diplomacy with countries which are different in their own ways, but with each of which India is able to build a very advantageous, forward-looking relationship.
All right. We'll leave it there. Let's hope the United States trip of Indian Prime Minister is as successful as his French visit. Thank you very much to all of you, Alexis, Professor Nalapat, and Ambassador Sikri. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us on Global Mirror and sharing your perspective. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on this broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye. Up next is Neha Koshi with Beyond the Headline.